Welcome to the Abnormally Funny People Show with your hosts, Simon Minty and Steve Best. This podcast is sponsored by Barclays. For more information, please see our website, abnormallyfunnypeople.com. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Abnormally Funny People Show, number 12. I'm Simon Minty.
Hello, and I'm Steve Best.
Well, Edinburgh's looking good for it, isn't it, Steve?
It's looking fantastic. Finally, you can come and see us live. From 6th to the 31st of August, we'll be at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, playing at the Stand in the Square.
All the information will be on our website. We'll put that up pretty soon.
And you can be added to our mailing list there too.
Which is ever growing.
It is
really
indeed.
Like that.
Yep, lovely. So let's introduce the guests. We welcome the return of Mr. Paul Carter.
Hello.
A journalist, occasional stand-up, as you'll see later on, comedian, and someone who appeared on our live show in December.
And we also have royalty. Disability royalty. It's Baroness Jane Campbell. She's a crossbench member of the House of Lords. She's also the founder of Not Dead Yet UK and a long-term campaigner on disability equality and human rights. And according to her Twitter, she's importantly still alive.
I am. Hello.
Welcome.
And later on, we have Robin Christopherson from AbilityNet. He'll be here later telling us what's new with technology.
And Shannon Murray will be reporting from Los Angeles, including her visit to the Expo there.
As it's our 12th show, we also have someone on from our sponsors from Barclays. We're going to talk to them about what they are up to in terms of customers and staff who have a disability.
And we should say that we asked them. This wasn't them saying, can we muscle in? They've been very good. They've left us just to get to our own devices.
That's very true, yes.
Contact us by telephone or text on 07756 190 561.
Let's kick off with our regular little spot, the moment of the month. So, Jane, do you have a recent story, something that happened, your moment of the month?
Oh, moment of the month. But it always has to be, I'm afraid of the Lords, because that's where I live now.
Okay.
It's a big day centre, as you know. I don't get out much. Well, I sometimes get out. I went to number 11 Downing Street, and it was one of those receptions. You know, we have about 3 a day, where you sort of turn up and bow to people and be nice and do, say the right thing and then go back to work. So this time I was at number 11 with George Osborne, who is our Chancellor of the Exchequer. Back to do more chancelling. And there were many guests there. And there was quite a sweet guest who came up and asked me if I wanted a drink. And I thought, member of the catering staff. He had a ponytail. Looked a bit, to be honest, he looked as if he could do with a good scrub. But I thought, this is a nice chap. And he then sat down and started talking to me. And I thought, oh dear, I think he really ought to go and help other people and ask them if they would like a drink. Anyway, I was about to ask him whether he did catering often for George. And he said, well, actually, I'm an actor. And I said, do you do much acting? In a really patronising voice, because he looked pretty poor. And he said, yes, I do. And I said, whereabouts? And he said, mostly in Hollywood. And I thought, he's an extra. Anyway, we continued talking. And he said he was moving over to England and going to Henley-on-Thames. I said to him, it's very expensive there. I don't think you'll be able to manage to get anywhere there. And he said, what did I do? I told him. And then I said, do you do much of this sort of thing? Meaning catering. And he said, well, I'm an actor and, I've just done a couple of films. At which point, my dear husband, Roger Symes, decided to bend down and whisper in my ear, you're talking to Orlando Bloom, don't you? At which point, I looked at him and I said, so you'd like to come to the House of Lords? Well, any time. And they went red and escape, basically.
I mean, even when your husband told you, did you then know who he was, or were you still a little bit?
No, he had to say, Orlando Bloom, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Brilliant.
At which point I did twig on.
But I can get it, because actors do, especially if they're actors, they might do catering work to supplement their income. So
Yeah, most people are waiting. Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
He looked definitely like he'd been sleeping under the arches that night,
But
to be honest.
there are thousands of women who adore him. Was he not handsome in a rugged sort of way?
No, he was a bit smelly and we did a bit of a,
We've
bit of a
upgraded.
shower.
Well, we've got the exclusive now. That's
but don't say anything, will you?
no,
No,
we
this-
only
Strictly
have
between us.
This is a private conversation, this one.
500,000 listeners who will hear about that. I don't think Orlando tunes in though.
I'm that age where I don't know anyone's name.
Where is he now anyway? Doesn't matter, does it?
He's in Henley-on-Thames, I think.
Is it? Oh, he might be.
Bought a house.
He didn't give me a kiss.
I'm not surprised. Really.
And you were probably relieved. That's kind
That's
of a heck
great.
of a moment of the month.
Thank you very much. And Paul, what about your moment of the month?
Mine contains a guy wearing camouflage trousers, which isn't exactly the same. People feel the need that they can just ask you questions. When you have a visible impairment, people just feel that they can come and ask you stuff in the street.
For those who are listeners, I mean, they might have heard you before, but in terms of your impairment, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I don't have arms or legs below the elbow or the knee. When I was stood at a crossroads, Pelican Crossing, waiting to cross the road, and a few other people around me, as there is, and this chap stands next to me, and he suddenly says to me, he says, "Are you type 1?" And I didn't know what he meant at first. I was a bit like, "Excuse me," because scary people turn me into a Victorian dandy. But I thought it was kind of gang slang or prison talk or something at first. I didn't quite get it, and I was like, "Sorry, what?" And he went, "Type 1." I'm terribly sorry, I don't know what you mean. And he went, "You diabetic?" And I went, "No." And he was like, because my dad is, and he's only got one leg. So I was like, okay, right. And then suddenly I was walked off and I was thinking, God, if this was diabetes, I would have come off one hell of a sugar crash, wouldn't I?
But have you worked out kind of answers to give them?
Well, I think it depends on the context. I've just started working with some new people, and a lady came up to me a couple of days ago, and she went, "Your legs," because my legs are black, they're carbon fibre. People obviously can't see them. She went, "Oh, your legs, are they carbon fibre?" I said, "Yeah." She went, "Oh, they're just like my tennis rackets." She went, "If ever mine are broken," she's like, "I could borrow them." And everyone else on the desk had their head in their hands, were like, "You can't say that." And I was thinking, but that's great. I'd much rather that sort of interaction than just kind of complete sort of, well, is it rudeness? I don't really know how to...
No, I suppose, especially presuming no one's done the tennis racket, when someone's trying to be funny and it's quite new, that's really lovely.
Yeah.
I quite like that. I remember we bumped into one of your friends, Steve, who's a comedian, and he walked up and I think I had a cigarette and he sort of said something like, "Oh, I won't say that joke." And I really liked that, so it was something a bit different. So when they come up with a new gag, it really works.
Yeah. My other moment this month is I seem to have completely forgotten how to get dressed, but that doesn't seem to be a disability-related thing. It's just...
Why is that then?
I've gone out wearing trousers with a pair of pants still in one of the leg. I did that last week. That was quite special. I've gone out with my shirt inside out. My long-suffering housemate now has to check that I'm actually dressed and correct before I leave the house in the morning.
It's not a drunken stupor or something like that.
No, I think it's just incompetence. I'm not sure where it's come from.
I have to ask you an inappropriate disability question.
Okay,
now.
yeah.
So hang on, you said you had both sides of your pants or underwear on one leg. Is that what you're saying?
No. It was a pair of trousers that I was re-wearing.
Okay.
And there was a previous...
Oh, got you.
Yeah, this is an insight into my life here.
It's a bit grim. That's really grim. I wish I'd left it as it was.
So do I.
Thank you, Paul. Good luck with that.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Paul. Steve Best, our token non-disabled. Do you have a moment of the month? You work quite hard at these, don't you, to come up with something?
Well, it comes around to the month again. I think, I haven't thought, and then I try and look around and see what's going on. But this was related to my obsession and my love of magic. This one, You know how I'm into I love magic.
Stay with us, listeners.
Yeah, stay. But I think male listeners will. I think the women have switched off by now. If you mention magic, I don't think they're into magicians really or magic. I love sleight of hand with cards, and I came across this guy Richard Turner from the US, and he's registered blind from I think from the age of 9. I think he had complications with scarlet fever or something like that. But he is. I've never seen anybody like it with sleight of hand. as in just the best magician I think I've ever seen. So he's got moves named after him, and he gives demonstrations of how people cheat in casinos and card games. And he's got this kind of handlebar moustache and all this stuff. He looks like he's from Texas and all this stuff. He's blind, but he never mentions at all to the audience. So he's controlling cards, and he's dealing from the middle of the deck, the bottom of the deck, and he knows where everything is on the table as well. So it's just extraordinary. And I think it's a cliche, but he has this sense of touch with cards that the US card companies now are hiring him to design cards for them as well. I mean, it's extraordinary, guys. Really, I will put a link on to this because he does a whole act of how people cheat. And he's got this second deal, it's called, named after him.
Okay, now we lost them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. No, keep going.
Well, it's the top. You just deal the second card rather than the first card, but it's just invisible. He's got this named after, and he's the only person who can do it. It's called the Richard Turner second deal, and I just can't see it. So he turns the top card over to show you that he's dealing the second card, and you still can't see him dealing the second card. It's extraordinary.
I was going to prod you a minute ago to kind of do that, because I know when you talked before, you're like, if they have a disability and they do something, is that extraordinary? But it sounds like the disability is kind of incidental. If he's doing things that no one else can do, but that can't be linked to the blindness. It's just purely, he's just a really skilled...
Yes, I think he's just done it from a very early age. He said he's practiced 10 to 20 hours a day since he was 10 or something.
He sounds fascinating.
He is?
Yeah.
Well, I did really get off on it. I was really amazed. But he actually learned how to look at people to show that, for some reason, to show that he's not blind. But I don't know why, actually, for that. So he's kind of... And he's 6th Dan karate as well. And
He's a bit annoying now.
He's a bit annoying.
Overachiever.
Yeah.
I like it. That's quite impressive. So we've got to look him up on YouTube, have we?
And his son's called Ace, as in Ace of Spades, which has gone a bit weird. That's very American for me. What's yours anyway, Simon?
I have a couple. One was linked to last month. We had Phil Friend and James Partridge, and Phil and I have this ongoing battle about he thinks he looks like an athlete because he's a wheelchair user, and I look like a clown because I'm short. So I did a talk at Brunel University about comedy and disability, and it was lovely. And at the end, quite a lot of people came up to ask me questions, which is always a joy, and it kind of, makes you feel that you've said something interesting. But this one guy came up a little bit like your Orlando Bloom. This was a slightly sort of messy guy. He was a little bit stubbly and a bit, I don't think he'd had a bath for a week or for a few days.
Greasy ponytail? No,
his hair was shorter.
Wasn't Bruce Willis, was it?
You know what? His description isn't important. I don't want to get in trouble here.
Okay.
Anyway, he came up. I would say he had an amazing manner about him. You know, when some people just relax you and you're comfortable. He was a very big guy, tall and broad. And he said, I'm really interested about the whole concept of misfits. And I kind of, you can take that both ways. And I sort of said, okay. And he said, essentially, he's a clown. He's a professional clown. He'd even been on a week-long retreat with one of the most amazing clowns, a chap called Dr. Brown.
We went to see Dr. Brown in Soho, yeah.
Exactly.
Fantastic, yeah.
And this guy I met said, within 3 days he just collapsed because it was so intense. But I loved it. And there was this little moment of kind of, he feels he's a misfit, and yet on every intention, he's just a straightforward, regular guy. But he thought I might feel like I'm a misfit, and I feel that less. But it made me smile just to kind of get someone coming up with the whole clown thing. It's kind of following me a little bit scarily. The other bit I met with probably one of my oldest friends, or in terms of the longest time I've known him. And he now lives in Chicago with his family. He popped over for a few days and I saw him. He has I think a 10, 11-year-old boy who has some sort of neurological disability, or what we might call a learning disability. And we were talking generally, and I asked him permission for this because I thought, that's a great story, but should I be telling tales? And he said, go for it. He loves this podcast, by the way. Yes, Russell, my friend, said, one of the things that my son does is he doesn't like using a male stand-up toilet. He wants to go to the cubicle. So he always goes to the cubicle. What he also has a habit of when he's on his own, he just starts talking to himself. So he said, Russell, my friend, will be going to the loo, his son will be in the cubicle, and then this voice will come out and say, well, thinking about the weekend, maybe we can have a little bit of time on the Xbox or the PlayStation. I'm thinking Toy Story 3 might be enjoyable. What do you think? And then the bit that really made me laugh is the idea, if you were sitting in the next cubicle and someone asked you that, would you respond? Do you kind of go, well, okay, maybe Toy Story 2 better or something. It was just a joyous little story, but I did get permission.
But does he have a conversation with himself? So would he answer those kind of questions, or he would just put those questions out?
I think it's a monologue, and I don't think they're always necessarily questions, but there's stuff that if I was sitting in the cubicle, I'd feel I'd have to respond in some way.
I think it would depend what toilet I was in, to be honest with you.
Go on.
I'm not sure I want to elaborate on that.
We did a sketch with Liam O'Carroll, didn't we? There was he was having a conversation. Someone was having a conversation on the phone.
Yes.
On the train.
And because Liam's blind, he doesn't realise and just starts joining in the conversation.
Exactly that.
Watch that on YouTube.
So coming up next, we will speak to Paul and Jane about their work.
Find us on Twitter or Facebook by searching for Abnormally Funny People or using the hashtag AFP Show.
Jane, it is delightful for us to have you on here, by the way. And although I've only sort of known you as a friend in the last few years, I've known about your existence for forever. I mean, you have been around disability rights for so long.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
It did come out as like...
My compliments decided to turn into something
It's my
else.
100th birthday.
Yeah, exactly,
this year.
When you were part of British Council of Disabled People, when was this?
Oh, that was... I just left Sussex University. And I was kind of working at Radar.
Okay.
Do you remember Radar?
I do.
And I was just about to be sacked by them for being unemployable. And I bumped into somebody called Francis Hassler, who worked at the Spinal Injuries Association. And I was going, I don't like it here and I don't know why. They're so weird to me and they're supposed to be a charity who like disabled people, but they don't like me. And she said, come along and join BCODP and you'll find out why.
And where's this, mid-80s, early 90s?
That would be 83, 82, 83.
I mean, I'm going to come on to this kind of momentous change, but I confess, I think when I first was getting involved in disability in my mid-90s, BCODP and people like that scared the pants off me. I mean,
they were pretty scary.
For the listeners and for me, you said that would be...
said it at the beginning, British Council of Disabled People,
Yeah.
BCODP, yeah. And it trips off the tongue.
And they were basically the radical organisation of disabled people that challenged all the charities for and shouting out, nothing about us without us.
Right.
And we're going to speak for ourselves and piss off you lot.
Was it
So
piss on pity? Was that
Oh,
what it was?
yes.
Yeah.
I had the T-shirt.
I still use that.
On the 1st March. That was Stop Telethon.
I mean, the thing is, they were radical, scared the pants off me, perhaps being a bit more sort of middle line or a bit more pragmatic.
But they were very brainy. It was Vic Finkelstein,
Okay.
Professor,
Yeah.
Mike Oliver,
Yeah.
social model,
These are
guru,
the authors of
They
lots
were
of
the
disability
authors.
books. Yeah.
and they were bloody intelligent,
Yeah.
bloody scary,
Uh,
and all men, until Rachel came on scene.
I'm trying to work out, how the hell did you then now find yourself in the House of Lords? Because from being radical
Whoa.
anti-establishment to suddenly being in the most sort of establishment.
But you can still be radical in the establishment, though, can't you?
Well, I am.
There we go.
I call myself a fellow traveller. So I have all my principles, but I know how to play the game of politics, which is all about negotiation and playing the long game. And that's really important. Well, the journey was weird. I mean, you're right, I was incredibly radical. I was quite a separatist in the beginning. Only wanted to be with disabled people.
Right.
Believed in 100% of disabled people for any organisation. We hated the big six as it was then. The ONB, ONLD, Scope, Leonard Cheshire, and MENCAP.
But presumably that made some sense in that if you're trying to break away from those big charity organisations that were run by non-disabled, the fear was if you had well-meaning non-disabled, they'd kind of take over again.
Well, we needed to find our own identity.
Right.
And I think we basically, like the women's movement, I mean, it's a very similar trajectory because we needed to find out who we were and what we were campaigning for and why we felt so angry about what was the world around us. So I think it was an important time, like it was for women. Once we'd find out found out who we were, and we had a plan, and we fought for anti-discrimination legislation and civil rights. We had a very, very firm focus, and that really helped because it not only empowered us, suddenly we weren't the problem, but society was, and it gave us a route map to liberation. And we had some wonderful teachers. I mean, without Vic Finkelstein and Mike Oliver's development of the social model, I think we would have been a lot less focused. But we knew what we wanted.
There's people I know who think I am radical, but I don't think I am
Do
radical.
they?
Yeah, absolutely. But not compared to some of that stuff or yourself. But then it sounds a bit weird, and I'm doing a dodgy hierarchy. But sometimes when I think about it, how do I say, I could get employment possibly, and it is unlikely that I'm going to be in an institution, and it's unlikely that I need 24-hour care at the moment. It might happen. I've always wondered, is some of that, you were saying we found out why we felt the way we were and what we wanted to change. So I identify with the social model, but then there were other elements I'm thinking, and if you have a more severe impairment or you are fearful that someone's going to put you in an institution, would I be much more radicalised? Would I be more aggressive? Am I being simplistic with that, or do you think there's something in that?
I don't know, because the one thing I did find from the BCOTP is that I felt I belonged for the first time.
Right.
I'd spent a year at Radar feeling that I didn't fit at all and couldn't understand why. And I didn't have the means to kind of unpick that and understand it. I went to a BCODP meeting. I heard Vic talk about the social model, and suddenly it was like a huge light bulb going on, and that sense of relief that you're no longer the problem and that society is gives you a great bond with the other people who were there in the room who felt the same. So I
had that moment too.
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
And I was bonding with people with all sorts of impairments. I mean, I remember, when I was at school, special school, being really embarrassed when I was out and about with my mum if another disabled person was in the street. I was going, quick, cross the road. I don't want to be seen with them. Because you have that awful internalised oppression that makes you not want to be part of something that makes you, very angry. And so you cite other disabled people as the problem rather than understand it and refocus that kind of deep anger. So I guess that's what really enabled us to bond across the impairment spectrum.
Is the organisation still going as a
like the women's liberation movement and Spare Rib, that had its time. ODP had a purpose at that time. Now something new and more relevant to the world in which we live is kind of beginning to develop. Normally, largely through social media. But then we didn't have social media.
Absolutely.
We gathered in day centres and windy halls, and that's how we got together and organised.
I do know when I started to spend more time with other disabled people, particularly other short people like me, there was this, you got it, and that was an amazing. I mean, have you experienced this, Paul? Is it something you've gone through?
I mean, my first experience of the social model was when I started working at Disability Now, and I'd never really come across it before then. But I'll never forget my first day walking into Disability Now, and we all went out for a team lunch, and so there was me, a short person, someone who was blind, someone who was deaf. We had the full bag of impairments. It was quite spectacular.
Was there a magician there?
A couple of clowns, And,
Thank you.
And we went out, and I remember walking 3 paces behind because I was like, I'd come up through mainstream school and all the rest of it. I'd never really been surrounded by that many disabled people. I came in it from sort of the opposite way, and I was a bit like, oh God, this is a bit weird. And it took a while for me to realise that we were we were all
We have a lot in common
Yeah,
rather than a lot
yeah.
of difference. Yeah.
But everybody came in the opposite way, I take it. I mean, they all seemed to be isolated until you met other people with disabilities. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but don't forget, Jane said she went to special school
Yes,
and
right,
then
I've got you.
rejected it.
And I
So
hated disabled people.
I've got you, and so you
you're
came
still
through
like that,
mainstream.
I think. Still a bit like that.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Joke.
But I mean, the thing about the social model, I mean, it's so interesting to hear you say about a light bulb moment, because I've heard so many people describe it exactly like that.
Yeah.
And I was at a talk about 3 or 4 weeks ago with the wonderful Phil Friend, who I know was on your show last time around, and he was giving the talk, and it was with about 9 or 10 other disabled people, and they were all younger disabled people, a lot younger than me, and you could see on their faces that they were all like, oh yeah, this is really interesting. And I think sometimes we make the mistake that we all sort of get it and understand it and inherently know what it is, and forget that people sort of outside of the movement don't necessarily
I think also,
know about it.
and don't get me wrong, it was a joy, but there's also a bit of, as you get to know it, you spot there are problems with it too.
Sure, yeah.
And we haven't got a better replacement at the moment. Steve's saying this is the best podcast ever.
Think of lines and quips to make, and I think I can't say that.
I've only done one question to Jane, so
What
I'm
do you
going to...
mean there's something wrong with it?
Well, no,
It's wonderful.
well,
It
you
is.
sort of...
Jake's giving Simon daggers right now.
It was my worry. It was designed, as you already said, by men in wheelchairs who were academics, sort of 40 years
But
ago.
then the women came in and developed it.
Well, that's the bit, but it still needs development. I think that there's a sort of balance, and it didn't, for me, allow for things like I do get pain and I do get discomfort, and it was almost like, I know there's argument, but
But that's a given.
it's a bit woolly
But we
around the
just don't
edges.
focus on the impairment. We focus on things that can be fixed
Yes,
by other people,
yes.
and that they should be doing it. We're not the problem. We shouldn't have to do all the fixing.
But we're allowed to have our own problems as well, because we weren't sort of allowed.
Absolutely.
Well, no, it was dogma for a while. We weren't even allowed to be critical of it. You would get sort of thrown out of the
Yeah,
game.
that was pretty radical.
Yeah.
The radical fringe.
critical of.
Of the concept of the social model.
Okay,
And
okay.
if someone sort of said, "Well, hang on, I've got a problem with it," or "I don't get it," it was almost a dogma. It was our Bible. You couldn't question it. But
But everybody has personal issues,
yes,
whether that be pain, bereavement, desperate unhappiness. Because of their
Nothing to do with disability
economic,
sometimes.
yeah.
well, it can be.
Economic
That's my
situation.
point.
Right.
It has to. It,
It-
should allow more for the
Yes.
individual experience rather than.
Well, I was always a bit more of a liberal. I mean, there was a political dimension to the disability movement, because you had the trade unionists,
Yeah.
largely from Manchester coalition.
Yes.
Then you had the Southerners, like
MCODP.
me, who was into independent living and getting support to basically get out there and be part of the world.
But sometimes, isn't it the case when a movement like that happens that you have to have a strong kind of dogma as such, so that
Doctrine. Yeah.
so that people are together, and then you can kind of
But that,
dilute it slightly.
maybe that's
not-
part of the maturity of it, because the fear of criticising it when it was making such change and enlightening so many people, it was scary to criticise it. But maybe as we got more mature, we kind of go, well, hang on, we should be able to
Which
question.
sounds like
Yeah.
what's happened, because it's disbanded as such, or not disbanded, but then there's something else comes in to take its place. Yeah.
Well, now other issues that are basically based on the social model, like independent living or full employment or human rights work or, the UN Convention, people gather around those issues, and it's gone pretty much onto social media stuff.
I
So
should
you
say,
have huge Facebook campaigns on something like, assisted dying, for instance, and people will just do that. Whereas at the time of the BCODP, we were doing the whole of society.
I still love it. It's still a light bulb moment. I haven't seen something better. That's the point.
Oh, that's a relief.
I'm going to try and whiz it right up to date. So you're in the House of Lords.
I am.
Yes, thank you very much. We said that 6 times.
She's going to have you locked in the tower at this rate.
Is it accessible? That's the question.
But we've got a prison.
Now, I sort of know the answer to this, and I'm going to sort of lead it a little bit forward. But some of the things, because you're a trailblazer, because you break down doors and barriers and so on, there was the issue around you having to make a speech, but your voice not being strong
Oh,
enough.
yes. The day I ran out of puff.
What happened with that, or what did you have to do?
Well, it was about 3 years ago that I realised that I was going to need someone to help me finish my speeches because I just ran out of parts.
How long are the speeches generally?
Well, they can be anything from about 7 or 8 minutes to about 14, 15. And to be frank, it's terrifying. Mm-hmm. You know, you go on the floor of the House of Lords and give a speech that's going to be, every word is going to be in Hansard the next day and on the telly.
Yeah.
It's scary. So that, combined with lack of lung power, I was finding it really increasingly difficult. So I said that I would need a personal assistant with me in the chamber to, one, help me swallow water and stuff, to help me carry on, but also to eventually finish my speeches. Oh dear. That was going to break a 1795 standing order that no commoner is allowed on the floor of the House. Only peers the realm. And now that I'm not a commoner, you commoners.
Thanks for that group bonding thing there.
They basically said, no, that was going to mean that, you know, you can't change convention. And it wouldn't be fair on the others. I thought, okay. Well, basically after 5 committee meetings and going to the floor of the House, it took 2.5 years. I can now take a person into the chamber. But I have to tell you, the first couple of committees, it was a big fat no.
Can I, as a commoner, that just sounds absolutely ridiculous. That's the things that really does annoy.
I'm not interested in your view as a commoner, Steve. No, it does seem absurd.
It does.
It?
I just can't get my head around that.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions. I was going to say, did anyone actually have any resistance to it? But obviously, if you had 2 committees say no,
yes,
then
absolutely.
That's extraordinary.
Well, one was
it only was it only historical? Was there any other? Well, I don't understand.
They also said that if I had it, then others would want it.
But in offices, when someone says, I've got a really bad back, can I get a different chair? They go, no, if you get it, they're all want it. And then they do it in the House of Lords.
Absolutely.
But that's what I mean. That's really doesn't. No, because.
But the main objection was that nobody reads out their speeches, which of course is a big fat lie, because most people do. But it's supposed to be a debate.
In theory, you're thinking on your feet
Yes.
and just throwing. So the fact you're showing that it is prepared sometimes.
Yeah, well, I just said, look, I'm not asking for it all the time. I'm happy to take questions because anybody can stand up and interject, you know. But of course, there's convention. One has to give way.
But isn't there the law as well? Isn't there a discrimination?
Well,
Which
not in the
takes
House.
priority.
Not in the House of Westminster.
Doesn't apply at all.
Nope, sovereignty.
Okay.
You see, so laws don't apply.
So you've got to become the Queen, basically.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
So we got royalty. You have done something that I'm so envious of. Amongst all the things that you've done, you've been on Desert Island Discs.
Can I say me too?
Which is a
me too.
BBC Radio 4 programme where the person goes on and talks about their sort of favourite 8 pieces of music and gets interviewed. And it's a very revealing interview. How was that? And how did you choose? I couldn't choose 8 songs. That would be so hard.
Well, it was difficult. I mean, it really is difficult. In the end, I decided I wouldn't choose pieces of music that I loved. Only one. But the rest I chose because they reminded me of different parts of my life.
Okay.
And that worked very well.
Which is what often what happens on Desert Island is, I find.
Good idea.
A bit of a fan of that. People do that, don't they?
And when they play it, because they actually play it
Yes.
in the studio.
That must be so
and you think,
emotive.
"Oh," and they got me to say anything. I would have revealed anything.
No, but that's how, if it reminds you of great stuff,
was
or
very
even
clever.
sad times, then music's so emotive.
Yeah. And they did it so well. And they do their research on you. So suddenly they say, now, Jane Campbell, didn't you say on such and such a date? Blah, blah. And you go, oh, yes, I did. I ended up revealing all. I did get into a bit of trouble with my mother. But I won't tell you why.
Well, we can listen to it, can't we? It's somewhere. Yeah. Thank you. We're going to pause for a moment, Jane. We will come back to you and hear from you in a moment. But
We've got
Steve.
Mr. Paul Carter in the studios. I have to admit that I watched your documentary for the first time. Your
sorry.
Half Man Standing.
Yeah.
Because I'm being stand-up comedian-wise, I was very intrigued by it, and I can't believe I haven't watched it before. I thought it was great. I really did enjoy it.
What was it? Just for those who've not seen it.
So Mr. Paul Carter, he should explain himself, but the way I got it was that you decided, for whatever reason, is to do a stand-up set, but you gave yourself just 2 weeks to get to the Comedy Store. So you had 2 weeks to do a set at the Comedy Store.
That's right, yeah. But there was a big sort of twist, if you like, in that I set a limit on myself that I wasn't allowed to do any material about disability or sort of anything that referenced myself in any way. And that was...
You spoke to Steve Day and Mark Dolan. Steve Day is one of our abnormally funny people, and Mark Dolan, who I know actually is a stand. They both said you're mad.
Yeah, they both said I was
crazy.
Doing? I mean, it was a conscious thing because we wanted to try and sort of a little social experiment, if you like, and we wanted to screw with the audience a little bit, and we wanted to see whether they would expect me to do that kind of material, and following from that, whether they would still find it funny if I didn't do that kind of material.
Yes, I mean, I think it's a tough thing to do, because if you were a stand-up of 10 years and you had a disability and you wanted to do that and try it out, then but you were giving yourself such a hard time. Yeah, really.
It was tough. It was really tough.
It was very funny watching you do your piece to your bit to camera at night, and you were just you just
Were you scared or
scared? What am I doing? Tired.
Yeah,
you know,
it was all of the emotions, Simon. It was all of them.
You just need to be on Desert Island Disc with your favourite music. I'd have cried for you as well. But it was good. I thought a lot of stuff came out of it as well. And you did kind of mention when you said that, got to get the elephant. I mean, there's a bit of stand up that you kind of
we kind of wanted to. I mean, that was Mark's suggestion, and I have to say I couldn't have done it without Mark Dolan. He was incredible. He was superb. The best mentor I could have asked for, apart from yourself.
Yeah, you didn't ask me.
We kind of agreed a sort of a compromise that we'd hint at it at the beginning, and we'd maybe lead the audience down the path that we thought we were going to go down that route, and then we veered away from it. Just to sort of
just to set up.
We've got a little clip. Is it worth us just having a little listen?
Of Paul Carter's stand-up. Yes, let's have a little listen to his stand-up.
It's a difficult issue. One night we were sat there watching a programme about kids' cartoons and old toys and things like that. Does anyone here remember He-Man? Yeah, I love He-Man. It was only when I started to try and explain He-Man to an Australian who'd never seen it before that I realised that He-Man is the gayest thing that ever existed. Right? It really is. You think about it, right? He travels the universe wearing nothing but tight underpants and what looks suspiciously like a pair of Ugg boots. Right? He's got long, blonde, well-conditioned hair. He masquerades as a prince. And this is absolutely true, right? I looked this up before I'd even written this part. This is absolutely true. There's a character, a villain in one of the He-Man episodes that is called Fisto. Right? It's absolute God's honest truth. I'm not making it up. And Fisto lives in Fisto Forest, which sounds suspiciously like a fetish club in Romford that I've been to on more than one occasion.
Simon teased me about it now, but I've gone into Middlesex University and I do a teaching thing with the drama students who do a module on stand-up comedy, and they take 3 months and all this stuff, and then they have to do an 8-minute piece. And I seriously thought that was... I mean, I don't want to be patronising, but I thought you did fantastically well.
Thank you.
I really did think you did really well. And I just one more thing is, have you gone on to? You haven't done any more since then, or you wanted to do it, or was it just like? I mean, Simon did it for the Edinburgh Festival 10 years ago, and you did your stand up, and you were absolutely bricking it, as they say, technical term. And you did it, and you really enjoyed it, and then you didn't do any more after that. Really, I mean, you do your speeches and all this stuff and other bits and pieces, but not pure stand up.
No, and I think I've said many a time, I did the Edinburgh run, so you do it every night for a month. And say that was 30 nights, 27 were horrific and scared the pants off me every day. The last 3 were a joy. Suddenly I found my voice, I was comfortable. I did more gigs with abnormally funny people, but you're right, I never went on to the circuit. I never tried to make a living of it.
But Paul doing just the one, it wasn't even a build-up to, do you have the desire to do it again? Or?
Do you know what? I mean, I've been asked that question a lot, and generally what I've said, and it's still true now, is that I've not been banging on doors asking to do it again. I haven't been ringing up clubs and going, could you book me? But if someone was to ask me to do it again, I'd think about it. Does that make sense? It's kind of
very positive.
No. I mean, I'm.
But you didn't get the bug.
I loved it. It was an incredible experience. And I'm not saying I wouldn't ever do it again, but it was kind of its thing.
Yeah.
It felt like, because we were doing it for the documentary, it felt like it was its own little self-contained thing. And I mean, who knows? I mean, there's a possibility I might be doing it again, in doing something similar in New York at some point. We'll see about that, but that's still up for discussion.
Well, I hope we get to see you again on stage. That'd be awesome. And well done. I mean, it is a big, scary thing to do. Ideally, you'd get your PA or someone to speak it as Jane does on the House of Lords.
It's a brilliant idea.
And then you get less fear, but it's your material.
That is a brilliant idea. There's a sketch in there somewhere.
Jane was nervous about coming onto here, wasn't it? Onto the podcast.
It's worse than speaking in the Lords.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
You're relaxed now, aren't you?
But at least, you know what you're going to say in the Lords.
Okay. So, next up, we are going to get some technology news from Robin Christopherson from AbilityNet, and we're going to hear from Shannon Murray, who's making it big in Los Angeles.
And we'll speak to Helen White, who's from Barclays and is our sponsor, to see what they're doing around disability.
You can contact us by email, podcast@abnormallyfunnypeople.com.
So we have Helen White, who's joined us. She's from Barclays Bank. We're going to speak to in a moment. Hi there, Helen.
Hello.
And we have Mr. Robin Christopherson on the line now from AbilityNet, talking about all the technology news. Hello, Robin.
Hello there.
So your first bit of news.
Well, with the warm weather that we're all enjoying, I think most people are thinking about the summer holidays. And so I've got a couple of things related to getting in shape and communicating when in foreign climes. So the first thing I wanted to talk about were a couple of apps that you can get on your smartphone. These apps are available on all the main platforms. The first one's called Pace DJ, which is all one word, Pace DJ. And people with different disabilities often find it hard to, choose a good workout system for them. There are lots of apps that kind of take you through different 7-minute workouts, etc. But often, you either can't see what they're doing on the screen, or you have a physical disability and it's kind of difficult to follow. So very much in the theme of doing your own thing, Pace DJ basically just scans the music on your phone and it orders it in order of beats per minute. So what you do is you can dance in your chair, or you can be on your rowing machine if that's what you do, or you can go out for a jog. Basically what it is it just chooses the right speed of music for you. So often when you're doing a workout, you have a fast piece of music followed by a slow one, and it can really throw you off your stride. So have a look at Pace DJ, and it basically allows you to choose the tempo of the music that will suit whatever your preferred and accessible mode of working out and exercising is. Pick a nice slow song if you just want to go for a walk.
That's quite fun. It doesn't work on your heartbeat, does it? So if your heartbeat speeds up.
There is another one called Pacemaker, which is all one word. And again, that's available on all platforms. And if you have a connected device like a Fitbit or something that can monitor your heart, Apple Watch, then what that does is you can set a target heart rate. And if you want a really strong workout, then set a high heart rate, and then it will put music that will choose music that will help you get there. So if you're not quite high enough with your heart rate, then it will make the music that it plays you next faster tempos.
It doesn't finish on the funeral march, is it?
Yeah, the last one is like a flat line, unfortunately. Yeah.
It also feels like you could use this for sort of mood music if you want a whole load of songs that have all got the same sort of tempo. It could be not just for moving about,
You're
but just
going
mood.
down a different line, Simon Minty. A romantic line, I feel.
I'm not.
Oh,
I'm just thinking if I
absolutely.
want, something. Could it be done for that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that you've got lots of romantic music on your iPhone there. So just choose a nice slow beat and you're away.
I can't believe it was a really innocent question. I was just thinking I want something a bit slow. Or even, anyway. I like the sound of that, Robin. Your second item, what else have you been thinking about or discovered this month?
So still in the theme of going on holiday, a lot of people also are sort of facing exams coming up in the immediate future. And if there's a language requirement that you have, then there's a couple of really interesting developments. One is everyone uses Skype. There is now an app called Skype Translate, Skype.com is where you can get it, and it's by Skype, obviously, and it's Skype with a twist where you can specify, well, you put people in your contacts and you specify what their language is. So, if they're in Germany and they speak German, then that's part of the profile in the contacts list. And when you call them using this Skype Translate app, then you speak, it then translates it into German and is spoken out at their end in a synthetic voice in German and vice versa. So it's like real-time language translation. All barriers, all language barriers are now completely disappeared.
So could this be used romantically, Robin?
That's amazing. But I remember talking to you before about something like that, the similar technology that sometimes, because it's real time, it's quite hard to translate it in real. So it does. Have you tried it? Does it actually work?
I do, and it uses Google Translate, so it's not perfect, but very, very useful if you have to have a conversation with somebody. And everybody uses Skype, so it's an incredibly convenient way of trying to bridge that gap.
It's a business. I mean, that's very good for businesses as well, isn't it? I mean, that's not only just a.
I was thinking that, but it also could be a bit risky as well, because if it isn't perfect and you start saying the wrong words and whatever, you could get into real trouble, particularly legal stuff and so on. Just want Jane Campbell, who's here, Robin. You were shaking your head. Do you not use Skype?
No, we still use quills.
Okay, that's the House of Lords. Yeah, okay.
We write letters to each other.
And carrier pigeons.
But personally, do you use Skype?
Nice.
Well, there we go. Well, you're right, Robin. Everyone's used it at least once.
Well, she speaks 10 languages, so she doesn't need it. That's
Have
great.
You got time for one final quick one?
Yes, of course.
So Duolingo, which you probably all know about, it's an app, again, on all the different platforms, free, and this is how you can tell whether your translations have been accurate or not, because this is actually learning the language proper, so that when you go away on holiday, you can actually do the courteous thing and speak in their language. Duolingo, for everyone that uses it, knows that it's absolutely fantastic. And the good news is that, like the other apps that I've mentioned, it's completely accessible. So if you just search for Duolingo, it's the best and free way of learning another language.
Fantastic. I mean, it used to be so expensive to do that in days gone by. That's very great. That's great. Thank you very much, Robin. Great to hear from you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Robin.
Cheers.
And we're delighted to have Shannon Murray, who is resident in LA, calling us in. Shannon, how are you? And I hear you've been to an expo there.
I have. Good morning, everyone. I've been to the US equivalent of NADEX, which I'm sure some of you are aware of. Over here, it's called the Abilities Expo, and it was held at the LA Convention Center a few weeks ago.
This is loads of sort of stuff that can be useful for differently disabled people.
Exactly. It generally is a mix of things that are targeted at healthcare professionals who are buying in bulk for hospitals or care homes, but also a lot of it for disabled people who want to go and chew and try before they buy themselves. And that was one of the things that I really noticed was the first difference as soon as I arrived, that NADEX always seems to have a larger majority of healthcare professionals who are attending, whereas the Abilities Expo was very much more the disabled people themselves going in and trying things out. I don't know if that's to do with the healthcare system out here, that maybe they have more say because of the way insurance works. I don't know. But there was definitely a lot more disabled people themselves at the expo.
Was it also to do with just other things that we've just had Robin Christopherson on talking about apps and other gadgets that people can use? Was that the case as well, or was it just, as you say?
There was a little bit of that. There was a lot more social media presence, but it was very much, try things out. So there was lots of different wheelchairs. There was a team of very glamorous girls who were doing dance routines in the chairs. There was miniature therapy ponies, which I adored, and I really wanted to try and take home, but couldn't.
Hang on. I have come across this, a miniature therapy pony. So this is to help your well-being?
They're adorable. They're
working.
They're probably about the same size as a chunky Great Dane, and very gentle. And these ones in particular were aimed at helping children with autism. Very, very calm. I mean, they're in this huge convention centre with people kind of running around going, "Oh my God, ponies!" But being very, very cool. And they had little glittery horseshoes as well, which I thought was a nice touch.
We were talking a little bit earlier on in the show about that kind of sense of unity that you can get when you hang out with some other disabled people. The fact that you were saying there were more disabled consumers there rather than the healthcare, did you Did you feel a bit more empowered, maybe? Did it feel it was more aimed at you rather than something here?
Very much so, very much so. And stopping at stands, you were definitely the priority, not somebody who might be working for an organisation that might buy 100 beds or something. And it was very much you were able to try things. There was also a lot more exercise equipment that was easy to use, particularly for I'm sorry, Simon, I'm going to go on about wheelchair users. But for wheelchair users, there was a lot more exercise equipment, which I've never seen before. There was also some bedroom aids as well. They were very interesting, but I did complain that they were all very much targeted at the male market, not the female market.
Is that a euphemism? Bedroom aids?
That point needed to be made, but these only facilitate easier things for men, not for women.
Oh, now all of our minds are racing. So I'll bring everybody in. Well, Baroness Jane Campbell.
I'm just thinking of the pony now.
Oh, no.
Gone downhill. Very interesting, although that's curious that it seems to be a bit male-dominated. Paul, Jane and Helen, I'm not going to ask you about that. You're looking really shocked now. Have you been to any of these expos? Do you go to these things?
I have. I was just going to say, hi Shannon. I was just going to say,
hi Paul.
I was going to ask, because Nadex here, my experience of it in the past, I haven't been for a few years, it was always very white medical hoists and...
Occupational therapists.
Yeah, it was
everywhere.
that and all that white plastic, that horrible clinical stuff everywhere. But I mean, they've got ponies, so they win already.
Did you buy anything?
I didn't, but I made some friends. I was asked if I wanted to enter the Miss California pageant. I kindly declined. So the tiara was very tempting, but I did decline that offer.
You didn't bring a pony back?
No, I didn't. But I've made friends, and I might go and try it. They've got big ponies too that you can ride. And I haven't ridden in years, so I might go and check that out. And if I do, I will, of course, let you know.
So, slightly moving on, and now I obviously think that you're there to make it big in Hollywood and all that stuff, and you have said there are other reasons, but how is work? How is acting? How are you feeling there?
I've been to a few classes out here. I've gone and had headshots. It's very much like a big machine out here where you tick certain boxes before you start getting to other levels. So I'm just kind of doing that and also just finding my feet. It was a big move, and things like, getting a flat tire in my first month was slightly unexpected. So I have to find a dealership that can fix my chair. And just all the little things of finding out where your local base is and what's around and what's accessible.
We've got an in with Orlando Bloom if you want one.
Yeah, brilliant, great, I'll take that.
Anything else from you, Shannon? It's lovely to hear from you, but anything else? Any other little snippets or things we need to know about?
No, so far there's been a couple of tremors while I've here, but I haven't actually felt any yet, so I'm feeling quite safe.
Wow. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, no, that puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that little downer at the end.
Well, thank you very much, Shannon Murray.
Thank you.
We'll speak to you again.
Brilliant, look forward to it. Take care, guys.
Good
Bye,
luck,
Shannon.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.
So now we have Helen White. Helen works for Barclays Bank, who are our sponsors on the podcast. You're actually just called Barclays now, aren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
much.
I knew that as I said it. But thank you for coming in, and we've asked you in to speak. You're doing some great stuff around disability. In terms of, you work for them. How do you think they're doing in terms of employees who may have a disability?
Yeah, well, this is kind of my area of expertise, I guess, because I work, my day job is IT accessibility. So that's kind of all around how we're making our systems accessible on the inside. We can't really function as a bank and serve people with disabilities if the people that work for us that have disabilities can't use any of our stuff. So it's quite a key area. I'm quite pleased that we're one of the first banks to be kind of really looking into that. So along with that side of things, we've got a really good colleague disability network called Reach that I work quite a lot for, and I'm the mental health lead for that network. So I do lots of events around mental health and lots of prodding of people to kind of get things improved. It's like a sort of constant flow of networking and trying to promote what we're doing into the rest of the bank.
I think this is a bit of a, I don't know what, game changer. 20, 30 years ago, to find a disabled person in an organisation, unless it was really obvious, even then they might not identify it. There's so many networks with big organisations now, and disabled staff are saying I'm happy to be part of it, and for their own well-being as well as the organisations. And yours is thriving.
Yeah, it's really thriving. We've just done a mental health campaign that went on for 12 months, and the amount of people that have come to the network and joined up and then been able to contribute massively to what we're doing. It's really positive, and it's kind of surprising because I've come from a non-corporate background, gone into a corporate world, and found a little niche for myself to be really active in what I believe in, and that's one of my passions. So I feel like we're doing really well as an organisation.
I mean, I've known you before, and you're kind of quite active around mental health, or as you quite rightly say, it's mental illness, but we all call it mental health because it's a bit easier. What's your sort of background experience on that?
I've got borderline personality disorder, which is a very oddly named gremlin, I suppose. Not really a gremlin, but it's one of those more severe ones that nobody really knows much about. If you've watched the film with Winona Ryder, Girl Interrupted, that's supposed to be about that. But you kind of get a whole package of things, so eating disorders and depression, anxiety, a big kind of package of stuff that all lumps together, and they don't really know what to call it. So for some reason they called it that.
But you have this question of when did you declare yourself as a disabled person public? I mean, also working for a big organisation, was there not a bit of hesitation around that?
Yeah, I didn't say anything when I first joined the bank. It was only when we started doing the campaign and we were asking people to come forward to share their personal stories, and I thought, well, might as well just go big or go home. So I decided I was just going to reveal all in a film. So I hadn't really said anything to anyone before that point. So yeah, I think it probably came as a surprise to some people.
I like the phrase "go big or go home," like that. This is the big question, though. This is the big question for you. We're obviously grateful, of course, but why do you think the Barclays, the big financial services, sponsored our podcast? What's going on there?
Disability in Comedy podcast.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? I think it's because it's unique in terms of the sort of platform. I don't see other banks sponsoring disability podcasts, and I think we are aware that we're trying to connect with real people to get what we're doing to be aligned with what real people actually want and how their experience of the world is. So comedy is something that connects with everybody, and it's you can laugh at yourself as well, especially as someone with a disability. I do a lot of laughing about mental health, oddly enough. So I kind of think it's really fitting that we sponsor this because it's about real people and real stuff. We've got a big drive to become the most inclusive, accessible go-to bank. It's just part of that, really.
Jane, Paul, any thoughts?
I'm really pleased because one thing that was very absent in the disability movement for a long time was the mental health community. Mm-hmm. And it was very kind of physically disabled orientated. And then the kind of people with learning difficulty started to kind of come into the movement. And only really in the last, I'd say 5 years, are we beginning to embrace mental health as part of our kind of brother and sister sort of network.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled. And of course, you do now have a minister for disabled people today announced who is interested in mental health. And I think that might be the first one who's openly done something. So there you are.
Yeah, that's got to be positive.
Bring him up tonight.
Okay, yeah. Got his number.
Oh, of course.
Paul?
I think it's great. I agree with what Jane says. I mean, I've experienced mental health myself, and I think for me the biggest thing over the past sort of 2 or 3 years is it's an awareness as well. It's not just a togetherness. It's the fact that people in the wider community actually get it a little bit more and are willing to engage with the issues. I think it's not something to be scared of and to run away and hide from and not to talk about anymore, which I think is a really positive thing.
And we can't really shout inclusiveness if we don't include people with mental health.
Thank you so much, Helen. We're going to just ask what you are all up to. So, Jane, what's sort of next on the agenda for you?
Well, I'm about to go back to school and in our first term. And today I can say exclusively to you that we will be running a select committee on the Equality Act. And this will be a post-legislative scrutiny committee on the Equality Act as it affects disabled people. Hurrah! And a couple of us managed to get the Liberals to put this forward as their choice. for the term.
Right.
And it went through the usual channels, which is like all the three parties when they negotiate what select committees they're going to do. And ours will start in June. And we'll be taking evidence from disabled people and their organisations to see whether the Equality Act is progressively developing equality for disabled people in access, attitudes, etc. Or whether we're at a standstill, or whether, even worse, we're going backwards. I'm very excited about this.
And I've got to stop myself from trying to give you some evidence right No, I mean, I'm so pleased you're doing that. And school, obviously, everyone looked and then they realised you're talking about the House of Lords again.
Well, it's kind of a cross between Hogwarts and Eton.
Goodness me. We're trying to think of different gags.
Yeah,
Right?
everyone's go when it's fine.
Many wizards.
And Mr. Paul Carter, beat that.
Every time you say, I have to follow.
Sorry.
I'm working on a couple of films at the moment, neither of which I can particularly say a great deal about at this moment. It's always the awkward thing with television because I don't want anyone to go off and nick my ideas. But I alluded to it earlier, there might be something happening on the stand-up front in America. We might be revisiting that film stateside in some capacity. I'm talking about that at the moment, so I shall keep you posted.
Great stuff.
Marvellous.
And Helen, you can speak in your personal capacity or Barclays stuff, what's on the horizon?
Well, I do need to say that Barclays has a Beacons project going on. So it's an accessibility feature for customers who, when they register with an app, they can then come into a branch and the branch will get certain information about their accessibility requirements. So it's quite an interesting new project, but we're looking for people to kind of help us pilot it. So it's at barclays.co.uk/beacons. There are 10 branches that we're running it at for this pilot. So if people are interested in helping us to progress that would be great.
It's a proximity one, isn't it? I want to kind of scoot past my local branch and sort of go near the door and then whiz off again. So I'll keep beeping up. They think I'm coming in, but I'm not really
but you can
coming in.
you can choose whether you want to, you could go in there and
so
not
you
have
put it
any
on
of
purposely.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
So there is obviously an element of choice, which is better than not.
You sound like you're doing like wheelchair knockdown ginger kind of thing. Is that
Very good.
Making childhood games accessible. I like it.
But yes, and then personally, I'm doing a lot of blogging for mental health. I'm going to go and visit Jane at school, hopefully.
Very good.
I've got a new friend.
Yeah.
Jane's very good at finding friends. You will not believe how busy you will be very soon.
That's good. I like busy.
We'll put. I read your blog. We'll put a link up on the website, so that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
That's great. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please leave us a review or a rating on Audioboom and iTunes.
Okay, before we go, we're just going to read out a few emails and tweets that we've heard from all you lovely people.
Becky from Texas says, I enjoyed listening to the latest show. The atmosphere felt very comfortable, like you were in my living room.
Maybe we've got an idea for a tour, though. We should be touring people's living rooms, Steve.
The podcast straight into the living room. That's a good idea, that, Simon.
Very nice. Angela from Ohio. It's very international at the moment. She loved show number 9, which had Liz Carr and Matt Fraser. We talked about their original Ouch podcast, and she's now gone back and found all the early shows that we were talking about.
So thank you for all of you who stayed in touch. We love hearing from you. It really does make our day.
You bet. You can find out how to contact us via our website, abnormallyfunnypeople.com.
You can also see some comedy clips for Barclays on there.
We'll have all links up to the various things that we've talked about, and you will find the transcript of the show, as well as some photos, other bits and bobs, and obviously about Edinburgh.
And thanks to our producer this week, that is David.
And thank you to all of you for listening.